Imagine the plight of these teenagers stranded in a dark cave for nearly 2 weeks. They had no light, neither were they able to move naturally. Their families and the world were concerned about their mental and physical health. But not only have these boys survived the terrible ordeal, doctors treating them say there is no reason to worry about their health.
Ambulances were lined up outside the Tham Luang cave as news of the boys being rescued came to the fore. 4 boys were extracted from the flooded cave on Monday in a long and arduous rescue operation. And the waiting ambulances rushed them to the hospital for a thorough examination. Much to the relief of everyone, these boys survived the last 2 weeks with minimum physical and mental stress. Thai authorities confirmed that they are in good spirits and some of them have been asking for food. Surviving on bare minimum food for the last 2 weeks, the boys asked for basil stir-fried rice and chocolate bread for breakfast.
These kids are footballers and they are healthy and strong, which means they have high immune systems.
The boys who were brought out of the cave over the last 2 days have undergone x-rays and blood tests for further examination. All of them are suffering from low body temperatures and are being treated with body heating equipment. 2 of them are being treated for lung inflammation, but their good health gives hope to the parents and authorities of the other boys who are still trapped. Worried parents gathered at the hospital waiting to meet their children.
I think for now we will let them visit through glass. We'll let them use hospital phones to talk to each other.
For the last 2 weeks, families of these boys have held their breath and prayed for their safe return.
I'm very worried about them. I pray for them all the time and hope they all come out safely.
The boys who were rescued on Monday were found to be meditating when the divers first discovered them. It turns out that their coach who led the doomed expedition was trained in meditation as a Buddhist monk, and that helped the boys keep their spirits high. Bureau Report, WION.
The mission to extract the 12 kids and the football coach from the cave in Thailand did claim 1 casualty. While all the 13 members miraculously survived, a former Thai Navy diver, Saman Gunan, died on Friday last week. The rescuers were working as volunteer and died during an overnight mission in which he was placing oxygen canisters. Kuan had started his dive shortly after 8:30 p.m. on July 5th, a journey that takes close to 6 hours from the mouth of the cave to the area where the team are trapped. He was knocked unconscious due to lack of oxygen. His diving buddy tried in vain to revive him in an underground cavern, but he was declared dead around 1 a.m. The former Navy SEAL had posted a video on Facebook as he was en route to the Tham Luang cave. All he wanted to do was to bring the boys back home. In the video, he declared that he will bring the boys home. And on your left are the live visuals from Thailand. And you can see the logistics involved in the operation is being gradually taken out. And on your right, this is the visual of the hospital where the crew is being treated. also how the rescue operations unfolded. The Tham Luang cave lies in Chiang Rai province in northern Thailand. The cave complex lies beneath the Doi Nang Non, a mountain range on the border between Thailand and Myanmar. It is almost 10 kilometers long and has many deep recesses, narrow passages and tunnels. The 12 boys and their coach were located all alive on 2nd July when a diver was placing guidelines in the cave to later assist others in navigation. They were found about 3.2 kilometers from the cave mouth. Efforts to locate them were hampered by rising water levels. Heavy rains had flooded the low-lying areas in the cave with just a few patches of dry ground between the entrance of the cave and the place where the boys were trapped. Some of the narrowest passageways are barely 15 inches in girth. On 3rd July, 7 divers, including a doctor and a nurse, joined the group inside the cave. The rescuers provided health checks and treatment. Luckily, none of the boys were in bad shape. Last night, 2 divers accompanied 1 boy each, guiding them through the deep recess, finally on the way out. These are the insides of the cave. This shows how narrow the cave would become. Have a look at the sharp edges. There were portions you could have walked, but there were portions one had to go underground. So all this was done by the Thai SEALs and the Navy officers. This is how narrow the cave became. On all equal intervals, oxygen tanks were placed. So these are the insides of the cave which we are showing you. These are the visuals you must have seen earlier, but this is the compilation which we are showing you to give you an idea of how difficult the terrain was. Now, earlier the coach was being criticized for being very adventurous, but then the news has come that coach spent 10 years in Buddhist monastery and he taught children meditation so that they could conserve their energy, be calm, and don't lose hope. So in retrospect, it seems that it worked with the children. The doctors are saying all of them have low body temperature, but it's also because of the fact that for 14 days they were not exposed to the sun. So these are the visuals from inside the cave complex. So you can see the wire is there, the oxygen tanks are there, visibility is 0, the terrain is tough, it's rocky, it's edgy, the water is muddy. But finally, the 17-day ordeal has finally ended. All 12 boys have been rescued. The rescued boys and the coach have been taken to hospital. Doctors say that they are being treated, they are suffering from low body pressure. So on your right you can see the photographs of the boys. These are the photographs of the children on your right, and on your left, the visual of the cave is running. And I'm joined by Commodore Uday Bhaskar on phone. Sir, thank you very much for making time for WION, sir. It's a beautiful story of hope, sir. It's a story where people have collaborated to come together. How do you see this story where from various parts of the world came together?
Well, first of all, I would say that this is very, very heartening news that all the children have been rescued, even though it's been a very, very long ordeal. So I think the first response and reaction, which I'm sure is global, is that everyone is cheering, and we are really delighted that the children are safe. That having been said, I think we also have to acknowledge the multinational nature of this particular effort and the manner in which the countries that were able to respond and provide the kind of support that the Thai government was looking for at this point was spontaneous. And because of technology, because of cyber and the way in which the whole world is now really connected, I think this was a rescue operation that had the whole world riveted and cheering, both for the teams that were engaged in the rescue and for the children and their families. So I think this really is very heartening, and at a time when there is so much bleakness around us in terms of the global mood, this is a very positive development, and I think everyone who has contributed to this should be commended, and I think the children who were rescued should be given, I would say, all the support that they need, which I'm sure they're receiving. And the divers and all the specialists who went down and did this very tricky operation, because this was one of those operations from the little detail that we have, that until it succeeded, I think everybody's fingers were crossed, and, we were waiting for this good news to be announced in a definitive manner, which is what we have heard now.
But Mr. Bhaskar, just completely from the Indian perspective, and I know this is not your expertise, but the fact of the matter is there was a 6 degrees of separation between those who covered and those who rescued. Something which gets blurred in India very quickly. That line did not blur in Thailand. Those who covered were at a different location, and those who rescued, they were at a different location. So there was great clarity of thought, and the way it was organized was marvelous.
Well, I would say, yes, this is an operation that has many positive attributes to it. And my own response, really more as an analyst, is to say that no two rescue operations are ever the same in terms of the nature of the challenges and the kind of resources that you can bring to bear. But every time, I think the professionals who are working in such disaster or accident rescue situations are looking at best practices. Now, I think what you are pointing out to the management of the challenge, and remember that this has been a very, very long ordeal, 16, 17 days, and the nature of the effort and the way in which the rescue was being conducted had to be reviewed and modified almost on a 12-hour cycle, and the fact that the rain was also adding to the complexity of the operation cannot be discounted. So I think there are some features that would be studied by the professionals, and every country, that has a similar kind of, shall we say, cadre that is engaged in disaster or accident relief would be looking at the lessons learned from this operation, and there are many positive attributes, and I'm sure that at the end of the day, those who were directly involved would also evolve certain, shall we say, benchmarks in terms of the responses and the kind of professional competence that is required, because this is one of those rarest of the rare kind of incidents where you have children going down into a cave, and then you have all the other natural factors, including the rain, leading to a situation like this. So I think, yes, every accident would lead to a best practice kind of review.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining WION. So, Commodore Uday Bhaskar, talking about collaboration, cooperation, and says at a time when the global mood and the global scenario is so dim and gloomy, at least you had one good story where people cooperated and collaborated with each other. And if you look at the visuals on my right side, this is the hospital complex where children have been kept. Now, no one is allowed to go inside. We don't know whether the parents have been allowed to meet, but the doctor was saying that they will be using the hospital phone so that the children can speak with their parents. But the fact of the matter is that they are being checked, kept in isolation, ensured that they're strong enough, ensured that they can get back to normal life. And when we spoke to a lot of psychologists, they said that some of them might require care lest they develop PTSD, which is called post-traumatic stress disorder. So I think that's very important, that events like these, which are called transformative events, so that way operation has been very, very successful. And Molly, if you look at the visuals, Molly, you know, there is no ruckus on the street. There is complete discipline, Molly. No one is trying to get into the hospital. The way it was organized, there was a complete separation of rescuers and coverage. So it was very well organized. Information was given at the right time. Footage was given to the people at the right time. So in a way, it was a successful operation which was conducted. The coverage was global. So Molly, in a way, it's pretty different. You know, when we talk about these operations, sometimes Molly, you know, the lines get blurred in India. But if you look at this operation, it's a model operation. It's a neat operation. Yes, it took, you know, it has its own casualty. The price was there. That diver died because of lack of oxygen. But then, this is the story of hope, Molly.
Indeed, and the story that stands out here is of human determination, of how the human spirit is indomitable. Just a quick reminder for our viewers who might just be tuning in. Thanks very much for that, Karthikeya. This is our continuing focus right here on WION. It's a miraculous rescue operation that has culminated successfully. All the 12 trapped soccer team members and their coach have been successfully rescued from that flooded Tham Luang cave in northern Thailand's Chiang Rai province. This has been a mission that has attracted the entire world's attention over the last 16 days. This is a 16-day-long ordeal which has now culminated successfully. Let's just break it down for you one by one. This, of course, is the latest in that mission, which began on Sunday. So on Sunday is when 4 of those trapped boys were rescued. The mission was then halted for a period of 10 hours. Post that period is when that mission was resumed. 4 more boys were then rescued, which was the second last lap of that rescue mission. Today being the last leg of that mission, the operation included pulling out those remaining trapped boys and their coach. And the 25-year-old coach is another story that we will focus on in just a few moments from now in greater detail, because that's one story that reminds us of the perseverance which went in for all of those 16 days. Remember, throughout the period when these boys and their coach were inside that flooded Tham Luang cave, pitch dark, narrow passageways, the coach's determination to ensure that the trapped boys are rescued successfully and sustain that entire period of time, almost 16 days of duration is when these boys were trapped inside that cave. And many reports have been pointing out, given the coach's previous meditation experience, given that he was a trained Buddhist monk, he had ensured that he also enables the boys to meditate and keep calm during that entire period that they were trapped inside that cave. So that's another story that we are going to be getting to you in just a short while from now in greater detail, focusing on how the perseverance of the coach also ensured that the boys sustained that entire duration, that they were isolated inside that flooded cave without food or water. Remember, on June 23rd is when those boys had gone inside the cave after a regular match. It was just another day for them. They'd gone to play a match, post which they had all decided to go and explore the Tham Luang cave, which is located in northern Thailand's Chiang Rai province. They traveled all the way to the cave and made their way inside. But unfortunately, while they were inside the cave, heavy rainfall forced a lot of water inside the narrow passageways, inside the crevices, deep into the cave. So that, in a way, made the boys and their coach unable to walk back out. So they kept going further into the cave, which ultimately resulted in them getting trapped. So it was 10 days, nearly 10 days after that point, that rescue teams from around the world joined hands, and ultimately it was a team of British divers who found those trapped boys and their coach around 4 kilometers deep into the cave near an elevated higher ground of Pattaya Beach inside the cave. And post thereon, different options were weighed in, a lot of deliberations in terms of the options that were at hand, but ultimately the boys were then taught how to swim and dive and pulled out one by one. So beginning Sunday, 4 boys were pulled out on Sunday, 4 the next day, and the remaining boys and their coach were pulled out today. So it's been a successful mission, prayers from across the world in a way being answered. This is a story of miraculous missions coming to a successful end. And before we go any further, our correspondent Siddhant Sibul has been getting us the minute-by-minute updates throughout this Herculean mission that's now come to a successful completion. Siddhant, you have been covering this mission right from the very beginning. You've been getting us the minute-by-minute updates. I want to begin by asking you, just a few moments after the news came in of this mission ending successfully, describe to us the scene at the press center where media teams are situated, where some locals have also gathered. What has the mood been like? You've been telling us how the mood has been absolutely that of optimism, because you know, there was no hope that was lost since the mission began. But just when the news came in that the entire operation has ended successfully with all of those 12 boys and their coach rescued successfully, tell us and give us an idea of what it was like on the ground.
Jubilation is the word at the media center where I am standing. It's just past 8:30 in Chiang Rai in Thailand, and a celebration is the mood, perhaps celebration all through the night in Thailand and perhaps the rest of the world, because the international media and the world was waiting with bated breath for this moment to arrive. It's just been 1 hour since that story broke of the boys being rescued, all the boys being rescued along with their coach from the very side, from behind me, from that place. A press conference will happen. A press conference will happen shortly. Yesterday, from the same very place, the governor of this province had met the media. He had promised that all the boys will be out by evening, by Tuesday evening, and finally we have this good news: boys being rescued. And it has been a stellar effort. It has been a story of human endeavor, a story that if humanity comes together, they can do anything. Faith on humanity has been restored finally, because you usually hear stories of civil wars, of people fighting with each other, wars, but this was a story, a different story of people coming together from different nationalities, different languages. I have been here stationed for last 2 days, and I have been witnessing how the world, it seems, has converged in this single point thing of making sure that the boys are out, from the media to the volunteers to the international team of rescuers. We know the fact that Americans, Israelis, the bordering countries of Myanmar, Laos, Belgium, UK, these were the teams which
We've unfortunately lost that line with Siddhant Sibul, but taking a cue from what he was saying and giving us a sense of what it's been like on the ground just moments after the news came in of the successful completion of that Herculean mission. All right, we are back on the line with Siddhant.
Well, after the mission got over, there was happiness, there was cheer, and I can tell you that every time there was a helicopter flowing above us at the media center. This temporary media center has been created just few minutes away from that cave, the Tham Luang cave, and bang in front of this media center is that mountain which has the caves. And focus all 3 days was not only a lot of hopes, a lot of prayers, but focus on making sure that the boys are out. People are waiting with bated breath. On the first day, we saw 4 boys being taken out, the strongest one. Then on the second day, 4 boys again. Yesterday night, there was a briefing at 10 p.m. local time. The Thai Prime Minister also visited the caves and he met the rescuing teams. And later on, there was this PC by the governor, and it is expected that PC will happen shortly because the media has started to gather behind me for that big press conference. I do expect a lot of cheer when the governor comes here and tells the press that finally the boys are out. We know the boys are out because it was told by the Thai Navy on their Facebook page, but it will be the official word by the governor of this province telling the big story for which everyone was waiting in Thailand and rest of the world. India had also offered its help, and today the ambassador in India, the Thai ambassador in India, thanked the Indian government for their support. India and Thailand are close neighbors, we know, and neighbors such as Myanmar and Laos also helped in the rescue mission. Remember, where I am standing in northern Thailand, it's a border area, a tri-junction of Myanmar, Thailand and Laos. So that is why the neighbors also.
Right, we'll just get Siddhant back on the line with us. Siddhant Sibal has been on the ground getting us the minute-by-minute updates from Chiang Rai, where the Tham Luang cave is located. In fact, he's been stationed at the press center just at a few meters of distance from that cave where the rescue operations have been going on, but ultimately have ended successfully with all of the 12 boys and their coach rescued successfully. It is a miraculous mission, and what's been a miracle all throughout has been how these boys have been, according to the procedure that was planned, have been brought out one by one. What's even more reason to celebrate is that as of now, the health parameters of almost all of those boys are under control. They have been without food and water for nearly 10 days of them being trapped. Remember, it was only on June 23rd when they went in to explore the cave, but 10 days is the period that they spent inside that cave without any human contact, without any outreach, because it took about 10 days for the teams to make their way through those narrow passageways, pitch dark, extremely challenging conditions to get to those boys. So let's just go back across to Siddhant Sibal, who's been getting us the very latest. Siddhant, there are multiple facets to this entire story. Let me just come to you one by one, speaking a little bit more in detail about, first of all, the coach's presence throughout and how, as many reports have been pointing out, given the coach's training in meditation, given his past experience as a Buddhist monk, has been a huge contributor to those boys sustaining themselves, keeping calm throughout that period that they spent inside that cave. As many as 10 days, as long as 10 days is what the boys spent without any teams finding them. It was only 10 days later, after them being trapped, is when the first team of bridge divers found them. So it's been quite an ordeal, to say the least, for the boys and their coach to maintain their calm and keep their hopes up alive. And the coach's contribution there has been spoken of and has been celebrated through various media reports.
Well, it has been a stellar effort by the coach, by the boys who were stuck, by the international team of rescuers, but it will be celebrated as a victory, especially by the boys and the coach, because remember, he was a monk and he was the person who helped the boys survive the 10-day-long ordeal through meditation. That was something that has been coming out on various reports, and perhaps after a few days or perhaps after months, this will be perhaps a case study for many people, because he was a person who ultimately made sure that the boys survived this small cave where they were stuck in high up in the mountains, treacherous terrain, and then of course the monsoon rains that caused inundation in the caves. And finally the rescue efforts, all the boys and the coach are now in the hospital. The first set and the second set of four boys, they are recovering fast. There was a press conference today morning at the hospital, and in the hospital it was said that they've started to respond. They are stable. They did lose a certain weight, but they're recovering fast. Some of them, the first batch, even met their parents, but there was a glass wall. And finally the boys who were rescued today, they were also shifted to the hospital. Now our next challenge is to make sure that the physical health as well as the mental health, because as we have been talking to various experts on WION, they have been telling about the psychological impact of the entire incident on their mental state. Long-term mental state, anxiety, depression can be some of the fallout of the entire tragic event which happened to these boys. But ultimately they survived, and this was a story of human will, of human endurance, of coming together of people in one common cause, cutting across boundaries, which is rare, it seems, these days in the world of politics and in the world of diplomacy. So that is why this story matters. We have been talking to a lot of foreign journalists who have been stationed here for many days now, and one thing which it seems every journalist had common was the fact that they wanted to just say that this is a story that could have happened anywhere in the world. It could have happened in India, this could have happened in Canada, it could have happened in Germany or Denmark, but this is a story where the world converged and made sure the boys survived. And we have been looking at various Twitter feeds and social media, and there are a lot of cartoons which are going on how boys survived this entire ordeal. One of the cartoons saying that this was the bravest team, perhaps this was the bravest team in the world, not in Russia, but perhaps in northern Thailand, where all the boys survived the ordeal, the more than 10-day long ordeal. First they went missing, and then finally they were found, and then the 3-day long rescue mission. It was a fight and a battle against water, against time, because each and every moment mattered, because the boys were stuck in a cave. This was a small cave, and water could have flooded, it could have been damaging to the boys. So that is why it was really important to rescue them as soon as possible, because the oxygen level was going down. We saw international support from Tesla chief to Donald Trump, everyone tweeting. We just saw tweets coming out. It's an outpouring on Twitter happening as we speak. So that is why this story is important.
Right, stay with me, Siddhant. Just a quick update that's coming in for our viewers as we continue to break down the latest that's coming in surrounding this story that remains our continuing focus here on WION. The Thai Navy SEALs, who have been a core part of this entire operation, have said, and I'm quoting from one of the statements that have been made by them on social media, we are not sure if this is a miracle science or what. All the 13 wild boars are now out of the cave. That's the statement that came in from the Thai Navy SEALs, who have been leading this operation as well. Elite foreign divers and Thai Navy SEALs extracted the final batch of the 4 boys that remained trapped, plus the 25-year-old coach today. This via a treacherous escape route that required them to squeeze through narrow water-filled tunnels inside the complicated cave complex. Officials, in fact, have said the 8 boys who were brought out on Sunday and Monday were in good health overall, as our correspondent Siddhant was also just pointing out. The boys aged between 11 and 16 and their 25-year-old coach ventured into the Tham Luang cave in the mountainous northern Thailand on June 23rd, after which, because of the heavy rainfall, they got trapped inside the cave. It was only 10 days later that a team of British divers found them. Siddhant, let me just come back to you, and a question that is on the minds of many at this moment is how long before these rescued boys and the coach are reunited with their families. We understand that there will be a certain amount of time that they will be kept away from their families, from relatives. They will be kept in isolation for a certain duration given their health concerns. But how long would that wait be? There have been, requests that have been coming in through those letters as well that the boys had written to their families of home-cooked food that they were waiting for. How long is that wait now going to be for the boys to actually be back home?
Well, it could take some time. It could really take some time, because the doctors and everyone who were involved in the entire mission would like the boys to come out safe and secure from this ordeal, both mentally and physically. We know the first batch of the boys who were rescued on a Sunday, they weren't allowed to meet the parents for at least 24 hours. Only today morning, the medical officers at the hospital confirmed that they were allowed to meet the parents, but there was a glass partition, there was a glass wall between them. So it could really take time because of the psychological impact. The biggest worry right now is not the physical impact on them, it's the mental impact, because that can be really damaging on the boys. It can lead to anxiety, long-term disorders. But one thing is for sure, these were 12 boys and their coach stuck in a cave for a pretty long time, and they survived together. It could have only happened through a joint effort between all the boys and the coach, and of course tributes being paid to the coach as well, because we know he was a former monk and he knew meditation, and through that way everyone survived. So they will actually form a bond through the rest of their life, and that is a prime example how if humanity works together, they'll survive anything. And later on we saw outpouring of support from Tesla chief to governments all across the world. We know that the team which was involved, the core team which was involved in the rescue mission was an international group of divers. We also met a diver here yesterday. He volunteered basically. He came from Singapore, all the way from Singapore to Thailand to give his help without any monetary compensation for that, and he was there to ask the Thai government. He asked the Thai government if they want any support, but by and large it shows that the common human thread between all the people, and that is why this mission was successful. It was a really dangerous mission. We know last week what happened. One of the former Thai SEAL officer died during a mission to rescue the boys, but finally it was all is well, and that is why the good news came just few hours in the day, and it's almost night here, and we do expect a press conference very shortly to happen by perhaps the governor, who has been briefing the media for last 2 days.
Indeed, we will closely monitor the latest coming in from Chiang Rai. I'll just come back to you, Siddhant. Just a quick report that we want our viewers to have a look at now. They're all out, the boys and their coach, but imagine the plight of the boys who were stranded inside that cave for over 2 weeks. It's been a 16-day-long ordeal. They had no light. Neither were the boys and their coach able to move inside that cramped space where they were trapped. And naturally, the families and the relatives and the world over was concerned about the mental and physical health. But not only have these boys survived the terrible ordeal, doctors treating the boys who were rescued over the last 2 days say there is no reason to worry about their health. A detailed report now.
Ambulances were lined up outside the Tam Luang cave as news of the boys being rescued came to the fore. 4 boys were extracted from the flooded cave on Monday in a long and arduous rescue operation. And the waiting ambulances rushed them to the hospital for a thorough examination. Much to the relief of everyone, these boys survived the last 2 weeks with minimum physical and mental stress. Thai authorities confirm that they are in good spirits, and some of them have been asking for food. Surviving on bare minimum food for the last 2 weeks, the boys asked for basil stir-fried rice and chocolate bread for breakfast.
These kids are footballers and they are healthy and strong, which means they have high immune systems.
The boys who were brought out of the cave over the last 2 days have undergone x-rays and blood tests for further examination. All of them are suffering from low body temperatures and are being treated with body heating equipment. 2 of them are being treated for lung inflammation, but their good health gives hope to the parents and authorities of the other boys who are still trapped. Worried parents gathered at the hospital waiting to meet their children.
I think for now we will let them visit through glass. We'll let them use hospital phones to talk to each other.
For the last 2 weeks, families of these boys have held their breath and prayed for their safe return. The boys who were rescued on Monday were found to be meditating when the divers first discovered them. It turns out that their coach who led the doomed expedition was trained in meditation as a Buddhist monk, and that helped the boys keep their spirits high. Bureau Report, WION.
And as we were just discussing, it's been surprising how the boys and their coach remained calm and remained determined throughout that entire 16-day-long ordeal that they were trapped inside that cave. And the power behind their spirit might be meditation, according to the latest reports that are coming in. The British divers who first discovered the trapped football team members reportedly found them meditating. Remember, on June 23rd, when the boys went in to explore the cave, it took about 10 days for the first team of divers of British nationality to actually find the boys inside the cave and locate them exactly where they were. And when they were discovered by the team of divers, they were found to be meditating. They were seen greeting the rescuers in a video that was then released by the Thai Navy SEALs, who have been a core part of that operation. It turns out now that the coach of this team, 25-year-old coach who led this doomed expedition to explore the cave that day, has been trained in meditation, has experience as a monk. He also lived in a monastery for a period of 10 years. So all of that came together in a way to try and enable the boys to keep their calm and keep their hopes alive during that entire ordeal that they were trapped inside. According to sources, the coach taught the boys how to meditate in the cave in order to help them keep calm and preserve their energy throughout that ordeal that they were trapped. The deputy chief of the mission said, and I'm quoting, "The coach was a Buddhist monk. He used his knowledge of meditation to keep the boys calm. Thailand has learned Buddhist wisdom from India through Lord Buddha." Now, several reports have indicated that the boys were helped to keep calm by the coach who trained them in meditation. And this is one part of that story that stands out in terms of the human spirit being undefeated.